It's your boy AD, the Black Viking, tapping in with y'all, man. And it is the 4th day of March 2025. Coming live and direct from the great state of Texas. But you know it's always town business. Shout out to my loved ones in Indianapolis, all surrounding areas throughout the state of Indiana, as well as all my friends, family members throughout the country, throughout the world, for that matter. How y'all doing? It is a very windy day down here in Texas, man. Just leaving out of Dallas on my way back home to Houston. And a lot going on in the world. Orange Face is acting up as usual with his homies. But I don't talk about him right now. I'm gonna move. I want to get on a subject that's more personal. Going back to my hometown. Like I said, I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. Had the big homie on the Breakfast Club this morning, Mike Epps. Original Naptown. Naptown original. Shout out to Naptown original. But yeah, man, the one and only Mike Epps, man, coming up off that 2-4. Good brother. Put on for the city, put on for the state, for that matter. I ain't got nothing bad to say about Mike, man. Your brother from the struggle. His good outweigh his bad. You know, we all coming from the streets got, you know, whatever. You feel me? Coming from the streets. It's always good and bad. But I speak in the overall sense of who he is. He's a real one, you know. Put a lot of people on, open doors up. He's done a lot to help individuals all over the country, but more specifically in our hometown of Indianapolis. So today he was on there, and Charlemagne the God on the Breakfast Club went right at about the situation, if there was a situation between him and Kevin Hart. Let's say this. Earlier, I went live and I was like, F Kevin Hart. I ain't gonna say F Kevin Hart. I ain't gonna tear another brother down. I was wrong for that. I was speaking emotionally. So I ain't gonna say F Kevin Hart. But I'm gonna say this. Kevin Hart could have been different in the handling of the situation when you know Mike Epps is from Indianapolis. The Indiana Pacers, man, what can you say? That ain't my team. I'm a Lakers fan. I rock out with LeBron. You feel me? Always, even over Mike. LeBron is, we ain't even got to go off of that, but LeBron's the GOAT to me because I look at your total. Ain't just on the court, it's what you can do on the court while still dealing with social issues. When you think about the greats like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Muhammad Ali, so forth and so on, Arthur Ashe, these are individuals that performed at a high level and still, Bill Russell, that still took on social issues. Mike didn't want to deal with none of that. So, you know, I put him where he, I put him number 2. LeBron's the GOAT. With that being said, the situation with Mike, he's been the face of our community. You know, ones know when you say Indiana, the first thing that's going to come to mind is Eurocentric. You feel me? You're going to think Eurocentric when somebody says something about Indiana. You don't hear too many people talk about Indianapolis. They're probably going to say something about Gary before they say something about Indianapolis. And that's because of the history. For a lot of years, we have been overlooked, misrepresented, should I say, by people in the business sectors, not only business sectors, but politically, as well as culturally. Because we got a lot of history coming up out of Indianapolis. But all the blame cannot be put on one individual. we as a community of people have an obligation. We have a responsibility to uphold our culture. And I use Houston all the time because I am a Houston resident. I've been there for the last 8 years that I've been in Houston. I love the H. I wouldn't want to live nowhere else. But I have learned so much through absorbing myself into the Houston culture. North side, south side, west side, east side. Right? The whole culture of Houston. And Houston's culture is not just specifically locked to Houston, because they have influence from New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Lafayette, Lake Charles, et cetera, et cetera. So it's Houston culture is / Louisiana culture. They like, you can't have one without the other. They have their own distinct in certain situations, but overall, it's a whole. I love it. It's not perfect, but in Houston specifically, black folks is progressive. Black folks are educated. They financially literate, and they about uplifting one another. Yes, there are exceptions to the rules, but when we talking culture, having your own culture is where you get your respect from. When you look at New York has a culture. You look in Texas, they have a culture. I don't care where you're in Dallas, Houston, or San Antonio or Austin. When you're talking black folks, they have a certain culture. You know they from Texas, right? West Coast, they have a culture. The West Coast has a culture, right? That's dominated by predominantly LA and the Bay Area. But everybody follows suit on the West Coast. It's a culture. They do things a certain way. Chicago has a culture. Detroit has a culture. They got their own particular lingo, what have you. So for me, looking back at my home state, the biggest mistake that we have made is we don't have an identity. We don't have our own culture. We have not created our own culture. And so when you don't have your own culture, you adopt other cultures. And by adopting other cultures, people don't respect where you're from because you basically don't have any identity. With that being said, Mike Epps has been the face of the up-and-coming culture of Indiana, if you would say, right? When you thought Indiana, now today, the first person you're going to think about is Mike Epps in a gold jacket that says Indiana Pacers on it. That's the first thing that'll come to mind. So, quite naturally, when you have put out so much for the culture or establishing a culture to be respected on a global stage, why would you go against the grain in appointing him as a representative for your brand, Indiana Pacers? I done heard a couple people tell me, I got an ear to the city, said some people didn't feel like during All-Star Weekend it was horrible, whatever. You know, I done heard a few things because I wanted to get, different views, different perspectives on why they think the Pacers would go with Kevin Hart instead of Mike Epps being the homegrown. And the same thing happened in New Orleans with Weezy, not taking him to be basically the halftime performance with it being in New Orleans. Me personally, I would prefer to have seen Weezy and Cash Money get it together and perform, because I didn't watch their performance. People said they couldn't put on a show. I didn't believe that. I believe they could have, if they would have had the opportunity. I believe them brothers were smart enough to pull it together, and they got the right type of people to make it make sense. New Orleans is cultural, bro. So anything celebratory in New Orleans, it's gonna turn up. And who better to do it than some brothers that was from there. So I take that same position in the sense of Mike Epps and Kevin Hart. It's kind of like the similar situation. Kevin Hart would be Kendrick Lamar, and Lil Wayne would be Mike Epps. Who knows Indiana better than Mike Epps? You bring it out outside representation that does not know the culture of Indiana, if there is one, right? I would rather it be put in Mike's hands. Now, okay, let's look at this. Some people are unhappy with what transpired during Super Bowl. But let me say this. It goes kind of back to what Mike alluded to in his Breakfast Club interview when he's like, who's coming to Indiana? It's cold in Indiana. Not only the weather plays an issue, but a lot of black folks knows the history of Indiana. I'm speaking from a position of authority on the matter. I'm from Indiana. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, Lana Smith, Lana Weaver, right? Her brother and first cousin is the last public lynching in the state of Indiana, Marion, right? So I'm very familiar historically with the reputation of the state of Indiana. You know, everybody will tell you that Indiana ain't a place for us. And if you was to ask me, I'm going to tell you that is facts. That's a true statement. Indiana has never been for us. Outside of Indianapolis and Gary, we don't exist. And when you look from a sports standpoint, right? When you look to the history of the Indiana Pacers, you look to the history of the Indianapolis Colts, you look at the type of black folks that they bring in to the city, I'm going to say they want people that will not cause waves. They do not want to bring in individuals that are about the culture. I guess that would be the best way. They want individuals that gonna go with the program for the most part. And I use a prime example. Nah, I can't use that example. But you take an individual like Zach Randolph. Shout out to Zebo. He's from my grandmother and them hometown, Marion, my mother's hometown, Marion, Indiana. Zebo is a real one. Zach Randolph, he's a real one. Has ties from Marion to Indianapolis, all over for that matter. But speaking in our home state, he's a real one from Marion that has his hands tied into the city of Indianapolis. He's as a real one. He's respected, in other words, right? As a real dude.
Please reduce speed.
They would not bring Zach Randolph into Indianapolis, and they had opportunities. Want to know why? Because he doesn't fit the criteria. He's not the type of person that they would want as the face of Indiana or what have you. But then you go to Memphis and they love him. But look at the difference between Tennessee and Indiana, or Memphis and Indianapolis. You'll understand. You got people in the field and you got people on the porch. And I don't like to put that title on nobody, but Zebo is a dude out of the field. Mike Epps is a dude from out of the field. You got a lot of other celebrities and entertainers and athletes and what have you that came from Indianapolis and that have been successful. But they wasn't in the field. It's a difference. Mike Epps is in the field. And it's just another case, in my opinion, right? This is my opinion, that they use you until they find something else that fits the billing. That's what they do in Indiana. They really don't care about us as a whole. It's about them meeting their objective. folks is understood. That's why I have a problem with us as a community of how we mistreat each other, how we are so hateful and jealous and envious of one another, how we don't inspire and stick together. That takes me back to Houston. I said Houston's not perfect, but I promise you, they have a culture of togetherness that is second to none. And I think a lot of other black communities could learn from what they do in Houston. But I think it's just not something, it's like you say, you know the old saying, it's not in me, it's not on me, it's in me. That's what it is with Houston. It's not on Houston, it's in Houston. It's just something that you're raised with, and you sense it a lot in the communities down south. They're more country. They've stuck into the code of grassroots and being vigilant about the ancestors and what have you. It's where Juneteenth started. And I don't believe that it has been a good enough job of our ancestors of conveying the historical truths and so forth and so on to get the respect that we deserve. And what I mean by that, you got a lot of older people that don't want to let go. They the gatekeepers, whether in the business sector, political, the pastors, what have you. Not all of them, but predominantly a lot of the individuals that are wealthy, affluent, and power brokers, as far as the black community in the state of Indiana, they be on the porch. Let's just keep it 100. They be on the porch, man. Or they're not on the porch, but they don't want to push the envelope to where it or cause ripple in the water. You know, they kind of pick and choose what they gonna say instead of just saying it. On my live, I was speaking on big bro Andre Carson, love the brother. He come from a hell of a lineage with the mother sister Julia Gigi Carson, right? And she was a trailblazer. She was a rider. She stood up. She fought. He travels in the same spirit, right? But the difference is Andre is a little bit more reserved as far as in his approach. He's a Muslim. So I already know what positions that he stand on. He don't have to say nothing. I already know he's Muslim. So, you know, he's already got the utmost respect and close proximity to my family. But I can see the difference between Andre as to Jasmine Crockett down here in Dallas, right? But the powers that be, if Andre was to be as more outspoken, like say a Jasmine Crockett would, man, they would conspire so hard against Andre Carson to get him out of there, and it's a red state. And you know, and I want to say this, being a red state, Texas, is different than a red state, Indiana. And I know that y'all probably saying, huh? Nah, the conservatives in Texas, not all of them, but a lot of the conservatives in Texas are way different than Indiana. And I had this talk, I think I was just speaking to my moms about this other day. It was on a political conversation. And I was saying to them that I see the difference. It seems like white folks in Texas, they be like, y'all stay over there, we stay over there, but we can get money together. South side, we're south side. They with all that. Y'all just live over there, we live over here. It's a big old state. Understood. Indiana, however, they don't want you to do nothing. They don't want you to get money. They don't want you to progress. They don't want you to educate yourself. They don't want you to live around them, what have you. It is a different form of racism. And a lot of people don't believe that. And so you have people that push an agenda that is complicit in them maintaining power. And that's from our own people. And that's a hard battle to fight. And so with Mike, you know, he's good only till they don't need him no more, or it's not producing the results that they want. But like Jay say, at the end of the day, still good. You feel me? Still, you gotta learn how to fight, man. But I'm gonna close out on this, man. You know, I stand with Mike. He's a legend. He's one of the baddest boys that come up out of Indiana. And I rock with him. And I don't support the Pacers. And I wouldn't advise y'all to support them either. And that's just keeping it 100. That's my position on it. I'm the Black Viking. And yeah, he say, the Don Mega, the GOAT. Yeah, ICECUBE, West Coast Don. Ice Cube say, Friday, the last Friday is on his way. You heard it today from Mike L. It's business time. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Red, black, and green, man. It's your boy AD, man, a Black Viking, man. And we don't do nothing but give you nothing but real facts and truth, man. This is the Black Viking perspective. Peace.